Hello everyone and welcome to a Christmas themed episode of the Beer Chronicles. Apologies in advance, I'm going to have to refer to my laptop for some notes and the laptop's decided to be quite loud today, so that's going to be annoying. Hopefully it won't ruin the audio of the video too much, but just to let you know that that's a thing. But yeah, Christmas time happens once every year and it's quite a big occasion for a lot of people. So I thought, seeing as it is inarguably the biggest holiday of the year, and I did a video on Halloween, so I might as well do a video on Christmas. And what better way to celebrate Christmas than with a beer? Now, as I'm sure we all know, one of the biggest traditions at Christmas time is, of course, visiting the German market. There's nothing like German beer and sausage to really ensure that you have a sehr good Weihnachten. So in the spirit of that, for this Christmas-themed episode, I'm going to be indulging in a bottle of Warsteiner, which I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, because it's a German beer and W is pronounced as a V there, so if I butcher the pronunciation, I'm sorry, but I'm not German. So but yeah, Warsteiner premium beer. I've never tried this one before, so this will be a new experience. I hope I like it, because this is one of the big 660 milliliter bottles, so I've got a lot of it to get through. Merry Christmas. Okay. When you first pour it into your mouth, there's a brief wave of refreshingness that is then immediately overtaken by a bitter aftertaste, which lingers for a while after you've swallowed it. That's not a bad thing. I enjoy a bitter beer from time to time, and yeah, this is quite nice. The main note I'm getting from that is bitterness. So if you're into bitter beers, then you might enjoy a bottle of Warsteiner. So anyway, I've got quite a packed video for you for this Christmas bonanza, so let's get into it, because I've got a lot to talk about. I decided, rather than just discussing one thing, we'd bunch a load of Christmas themed stuff into one video, because I'm not going to do multiple videos based around Christmas. That would be too oversaturated, so just stuff it all into one. I think it's probably a good idea. Also, before we get started on the Christmas stuff, just want to say, a couple of nights ago I went to see Alestorm live and it was fucking amazing. So yeah, not very Christmassy, I know, but it was a great time. For anyone who doesn't know, Alestorm, they are a metal band from Scotland and they do pirate metal. If that sounds like the sort of thing that you'd be into, then go for it. If you like heavy metal, pirates and drinking, you'll love Alestorm. But yeah, to start off the Christmas theme, I thought that we should probably talk about my feelings on Christmas itself. Before we get started, I'll give you a few seconds to guess now. Do I like or dislike Christmas? The answer is a bit of a cop-out. It's a mixed bag. In general, I hate the holiday season. I am not for it at all. But the actual Christmas day itself, I do tend to enjoy. It's just all the atmosphere beforehand that I don't like. Not even necessarily the atmosphere. The atmosphere is fine when it's just, in the spirit of the actual holiday itself, but it's the commercialism around it that I hate. The couple of months beforehand where everyone's preparing for Christmas, stores are advertising Christmas decorations and presents, and everyone's getting really stressed out about all the presents they need to buy, and it just really puts me off. And I know it's like that for a lot of people, but for someone like myself personally who works in retail, it's a fucking nightmare, because I have to put up with it every goddamn day. I was lucky enough this year that we didn't start playing Christmas music on the store radio until the month of December. But there have been years when we've played it in November. There have been years when we've started advertising the Christmas stock in October before Halloween's even happened. And as someone who has to be around that constantly because it's part of my job, by the time Christmas comes around, you have seen far too much of Christmas already and you just hate the idea of Christmas and you don't want anything to do with it. So working in retail really, really puts you off Christmas. So yeah, by the time it rolls around, I'm all Christmased out and I don't want anything to do with it. But the actual day itself, Christmas Day, I do still tend to quite enjoy. Get up a little earlier than usual, open presents with the family. It's a nice experience, even if most of them are fucking horrible most of the time. On Christmas morning, it's a time when you can all sort of bond over this shared experience. And sure, as you get older, you don't have as many presents to open. You have to sort of sit on the sidelines and let the children open it. But it's nice to see their reaction to the things that they've got. It's nice to see their faces light up when they get things that they enjoy. I get fewer presents now than I did as a kid, which is to be expected, but I still enjoy the things I get. I don't tend to get surprised at Christmas anymore. Most of the surprises are gone. Any big presents are normally things that I've asked for, and then the things I'm surprised with are the little things which, aren't really that exciting, like, the shower gels, the jumpers, those kinds of things. The little things that you don't ask for, but you sort of expect to get every year when you're an adult. The sort of things that the kids see you open and think, God, that they've got a shit present this year. But then when you're an adult, you actually quite appreciate it because it's the stuff you need. So yeah, I do enjoy that. And then I have to put up with the hours afterwards where the Christmas dinner's being cooked and I have to spend my time, instead of enjoying my own presents, putting together the presents that the kids have got. Being the only adult male of the house, it's sort of my job to do that. And that's not a sexist claim. I'm not saying that the women of the house couldn't normally do that kind of thing. I'm saying the women of my household can't, and it falls upon me to do that job. Because my mother, God bless her, she's always busy with the Christmas dinner, and also being a little bit disabled doesn't help. But then there's my sisters who are just useless and can't do shit, so it falls on me. In fact, a lot of the times, even on Christmas Eve, the night before, I have to wait until they go into bed, and then while they're asleep, they might have some big present that I need to put together the night before they wake up, which means I get to bed very late because I've been up all night putting together these things, and then I get very little sleep because they want to get up early in the morning. And, I'm normally exhausted on Christmas morning, and then I don't really get a chance to nap before dinner because I'm putting together more things for the kids. So yeah, that sounds like I'm moaning a little, but I do still enjoy the day mostly. When I finally get a chance to just, spend some time on my own and enjoy the gifts I've got, it's a nice feeling. I know one of the things I'm getting this year, which I'm looking forward to, which a lot of people have already got it and have already started playing it. I'm getting Pokemon Shining Pearl on the Switch, and I am looking forward to playing that. Again, it's the kind of game that people have already started now, but I am more than happy to wait for it because I don't have to pay for it in that case. I get it as a gift, so that's a plus. See, I've been looking forward to that remaster since it's been announced. A lot of people online seem to think that Shining Pearl is far inferior to Brilliant Diamond. I disagree. Obviously, the only real difference is the exclusive Pokemon list, and people seem to be saying that the Diamond one has the far better list compared to Pearl. That's subjective, personal taste. I can understand why a lot of people would think that, but for me personally, I actually think Shining Pearl has the better exclusives for the most part. Most of the generic Pokemon, I don't really care which ones I get, but I think the legendary birds from Gen 1, I personally prefer them rather than the legendary dogs from Gen 2. I love me some Entei. Suicune is awesome. Don't really give that much of a shit about Raikou, but Entei and Suicune, fantastic. But I love all three legendary birds. I was raised on Gen 1 of Pokemon, so, they're just great. So I'd rather have those than the dogs. Also, for me, I've always preferred Lugia over Ho-Oh. I know a lot of people love Ho-Oh. For me, I saw the movie Pokemon 2000 before I played the second gen games, so I think that helped sway me more towards Lugia than Ho-Oh. But even design-wise, I just prefer Lugia. I think Lugia is awesome, and that film also had the birds in, which might have helped me love them even more. This is going to be a bit of a hot take because a lot of people think Pokemon 1 is one of the best movies because it was the first movie and they have nostalgic feelings towards it. And then a lot of people think that Pokemon 3 is the best movie because of its, it's more sort of emotional adult storyline and, how it's wonderfully told and beautiful artistic film, and it is really, really good. I do highly recommend it. One of the few Pokemon films that I can say even people who aren't necessarily fans of Pokemon should probably give it a watch and see what you think, because it is really good. And then a lot of people sort of dismiss Pokemon 2000. They don't seem to enjoy it that much compared to the two films that sandwich it. And here's my hot take. I think Pokemon 2000 is the better film. I'm going to rephrase that. It's not the better film. I do think, objectively, from a storytelling point of view, Pokemon 3 is better. But subjectively, I have a lot of love for Pokemon 2000, and it's one of my personal favourite of the films. Pokemon 3 is objectively a better film, but Pokemon 2000 for me is just, I enjoy it so much. I love the story of it, I love the legendaries involved, I love Lugia so much. The music is great. Just the whole thing. I can't explain it any more than that. It just appeals to me personally on a personal level, and I love it. The one main gripe I have with Shining Pearl over Brilliant Diamond is that Brilliant Diamond gets Growlithe and Arcanine as their exclusives, and Pearl doesn't. And Arcanine is one of my favourite Pokemon. But that's overcome by the fact that I have friends who also will be playing these Pokemon games, and some of them have already started, and some of the ones who have already started, and some of the ones who are getting it later, will have Brilliant Diamond. And so I will have access through trading to these Pokemon anyway, so it doesn't really matter. That's the only real exclusive Pokemon that made me consider Diamond over Pearl, and I'll be able to get them aplenty if I want them, so that doesn't really matter. So for me, I made the conscious decision that Pearl would be better for me, and I am happy with that choice. Yeah, moving away from Pokemon and bringing it back to Christmas. This almost became a Pokemon video at that point. After I've put together the kids' stuff and had a bit of time to myself, the dinner comes along, and dinner's one of those things, you know, you always enjoy it at any age, but Christmas is mainly about the presents when you're a child. When you're an adult, it's mainly about the dinner. I absolutely love Christmas dinner every year. My mother's a wonderful cook, especially when it comes to roast dinners. I love a roast dinner from my mother so much, and Christmas dinner is one of the greatest examples of that. Obviously mainly turkey, but then we also usually have another meat alongside it, usually beef, and all the sides you could want. The meat slow cooked overnight from the night before. Portions are absolutely massive. We have big plates in this house. Compared to most households, our plates are quite a fair bit bigger, and they're always piled up on Christmas Day. And yet me, being the fat greedy bastard that I am, I always finish it. And last year was the 1 year in my memory of my whole life that I have ever not finished my Christmas dinner. It was just, I was close. There was only a little bit left. I gave it the old college try, but there was just too much for me. I think when I can't finish my Christmas dinner, that is a sign of me getting old. But yeah, I always enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to it again this year. Pigs in blankets. And then you get so full to bursting that you couldn't possibly fit in another bite. And then you have dessert, because there's always room for dessert. We normally have a mix of puddings available on Christmas Day, but there's always a trifle. Has to be a trifle. If no one else in the family wanted any trifle, I would take the whole bowl of trifle and eat it all to myself, because I gorge on trifle at any opportunity. Two of the biggest things I can't resist when it comes to food are donuts and trifle. And then when the dinner's finished, the kids are already playing with their things and there's nothing left for me to do, I finally get to just relax and enjoy a good Christmas movie. And every year, without fail, I have a tradition of watching the same Christmas movie, because it is my absolute favourite Christmas movie of all time. One of the greatest Christmas stories ever told, and that is, of course, Die Hard, which is a Christmas movie no matter what people say. Once you get a fair bit into this bottle, and you get more and more used to the bitterness of it, it becomes even easier to drink. It's one of those things that you often forget when you drink a bitter. You try it the first time and you think, ooh, this is a bit bitter. And you're okay with it because, you know, you like bitter and, you know, you've had enough of it in your time to tolerate it. But then you do drink those first few sips and think, that is quite a bit bitter. And you always forget that, you know, the more and more you drink of that drink, the more and more you're going to get used to it, and you're going to enjoy the drink even more by the end of it than you do at the start. Yeah, that's definitely happening with the Warsteiner. Starts off pleasant enough, a little bit too bitter perhaps, but still tolerable and nice. And then as you get through it, it becomes even more pleasant. As you get more conditioned to the bitter notes of it, it does just become a really nice beer. I'm really enjoying this. This is a nice one. I'd expect no less of a beer that's naturally brewed according to the German purity law. Warsteiner, das einzig wahre. I have no idea what that means. Einzig. What the fuck's einzig? Because ein is one. And zig is normally the suffix at the end of numbers that are in the tens. So zwei is 2 and zweizig is 20. Dry is 3 and dreizig is 30, and so on and so forth. But ein and zig, that wouldn't make 10, because 10 is sein, not einzig. What the hell is I have to know this now. Okay, einzig means only. Das einzig wahre. I'm going to assume then that wahre means like way, so it's the only way, or something stupid like that. Okay, wahre means real. So das einzig wahre translates to the only real. Okay, when used in a full sentence of das einzig wahre, then the context becomes the only true, which I assume when, you know, labelled with Warsteiner means like the only true beer or something like that. Foreign languages are interesting. See, my videos can also be educational. Where were we? Oh yeah, Die Hard. That is absolutely a Christmas movie. Imagine if Die Hard was the German title and the movie was actually called The Hard. But yeah, here is my case for Die Hard being a Christmas movie. Number one, it is set at Christmas. It's already off to a strong start. But I do think that what really, you know, makes a Christmas movie isn't the fact that it's set at Christmas. It's more so the fact that Christmas as a theme is integral to the movie. If a film's set at Christmas but it could be set at any time of year and still work without Christmas being involved, then it's not really a Christmas movie. The same as a movie could be set at any time of year and yet still have Christmas as the theme, and then that would be a Christmas movie even though it's not set at Christmas. So even though Die Hard is set on Christmas, that doesn't necessarily make it a Christmas movie, and I can admit that. But for me, what truly makes a Christmas movie is if you were to remove the Christmas theme from the movie, it removes a sort of integral element to the film itself. And I think that is definitely the case with Die Hard. There's a whole atmosphere of Christmas around the film, even though the plot itself isn't really very festive. It's about a group of criminals who take over a corporate building to steal from its bank vault. All the while, a cop from a different city happens to be in the building, and he single-handedly takes down this group of criminals. And that is what the film is about, and it doesn't sound like it would change much if you took Christmas out of it. But the whole atmosphere around the film, it seems to be focused on Christmas a lot of the time. And I think if you remove Christmas from it, then you change so much of the feeling around the film. A lot of the music used is Christmas music. There's constantly lines and quips from different characters throughout the film that refer to the fact that it's Christmas time. When the main character, played by Bruce Willis, John McClane, he takes down one of the bad guys, and the bad guy has a machine gun, and then he takes the machine gun from him, and, you know, now he's got a weapon to use against the rest of the villains. He decides to send the body down in an elevator to where the villains are hanging out, and writes a message on the guy's top, and he puts a Santa hat on the body, and the message on the top says, "I now have a machine gun, ho ho ho." And yeah, he could have just sent the body down in the elevator and maybe even wrote a message on top saying, "Now I have a machine gun," to sort of intimidate them, like, you know, to say, I managed to do this well without one so far, and now I've got a machine gun as well, so I'm even more prepared. But that scene definitely loses a lot if you remove the Santa hat and the ho ho ho. It's one of those sort of films where it's foremost an action movie, but it's got splashes of comedy thrown in, and those little funny moments really give the film character, and they are what make the film so lovable. And it's why the film has stood the test of time, because of the character of the film. A lot of the comedy of the film, which it's not an overly comedic film, but like I say, there are little sprinkles of comedy in there that give the film character and stop it just from being another generic action film. And a lot of that comedy is centered around the fact that this stuff is happening at Christmas of all times. And so if you remove the Christmas aspect, you remove a lot of the character of the movie, and even though it's not integral to the plot itself, it would still become a different movie in my point of view. And then there's other little touches, like there's the scene near the end where he approaches Hans Gruber, the villain, and he's got his hands behind his head in a sort of surrender, and then he's got a gun taped to his back so he can pull it out and shoot. That gun is just taped onto his back, and it could have just been with tape, but it's specifically with like Christmas themed tape. And yeah, the scene wouldn't change much if they just used normal tape, but the fact that they bothered to put in that little touch that it's Christmas tape, it really does go to show that even though a lot of the film could have been the same if they just took the Christmas out of it, they chose to put in these little Christmas touches. They chose to constantly remind you that this is happening at Christmas time. And to me, that really makes it feel like the makers of the movie want you to think of it as a Christmas movie. They want to keep reminding you, yeah, this is happening during Christmas. It's not just a film about action happening. It is a film about action happening at Christmas. And I know Bruce Willis has gone on record as saying it's not a Christmas movie, it's just an action movie. But as much as people like to quote Bruce Willis on that and say, well, he starred in the movie and he says it's not a Christmas movie, therefore it is officially not a Christmas movie, I respond to that with fuck you. Bruce Willis did a job he was paid to do. He didn't make the movie, and so even if he doesn't think it's a Christmas movie, that doesn't mean he's right. He may have more inside knowledge on the movie than a generic person. He may have a lot of insight on the character of John McClane, but he didn't create the movie. He didn't come up with the decisions behind the movie, and he does not get to decide whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not a Christmas movie. That kind of decision wouldn't fall on any of the actors. It would fall heavily on some of the producers and the director, mainly the director. And I do not know what the director said on this movie. I've never actually thought to look what the director said about it being a Christmas movie or not. I don't know if there's even a quote. Fuck it, let's find out. But what I'm saying is Bruce Willis's opinion, although he's looking at it from a bit more of a point of view of someone who was part of things. I can't think of how to phrase that for some reason. But yeah, even so, I do not take Bruce Willis's opinion as gospel on this matter. John McTiernan is the man who directed Die Hard. Okay, so apparently when they first started creating the movie, the director didn't think of it as a Christmas movie. He was thinking of it as an action film with terrorists. But he took some inspiration from things like It's a Wonderful Life and snuck those into the movie. And by the end of it, it's slowly sort of evolved into a Christmas movie. And he says that brought a lot of the joy to it, which is something that I went into a bit earlier anyway. And he seems to consider it to be a Christmas movie now in its final form. It may not have been his original intention when going into the movie, but the final product that he created, he seems to consider to be a Christmas movie. And I take that a lot more seriously than the actor's point of view, because at the end of the day, Bruce Willis did a lot for that movie, but he didn't create the movie. The actual themes and meanings behind movies, they're mainly up to the directors and the producers. So yeah, the director thinks it's a Christmas movie. That should be enough of an argument for it being a Christmas movie. And then there's also little touches like John McClane's wife is called Holly. Holly, very festive name, even though it never snows in Los Angeles. It's snowing at the end of the film to give it that little extra bit of a Christmas touch. Like I say, a lot of the characters constantly reference the fact that it's Christmas. The whole reason that John McClane is even there to begin with is because he got invited to a Christmas party at this corporate building. The whole film is centred around the fact that it's Christmas. It's a fucking Christmas movie. So yeah, that's my argument put forward. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Not only is it a Christmas movie, but it is the greatest Christmas movie of all time. And the reason it's the greatest Christmas movie of all time is because it's a Christmas movie and it's fucking awesome. So yeah. Because I'm not into the whole, lovey-dovey, holiday magic, feel-good, sort of themes that you get with a lot of Christmas movies. I like action and terrorism and Alan Rickman. That's what I want in a movie. And Die Hard has that in spades. So, yeah, it's better than the other Christmas movies out there. And that is why it is my annual tradition on Christmas Day to watch Die Hard. And I enjoy it every time. It's one of those things where, sometimes there's something that you really like, something that you really enjoy. It might be a movie, it might be something else, but because you really like it and you link it to a certain event, you try to make sure you do it every time that event comes round. For me, it'd be like watching Die Hard every Christmas Day. But even though you like the thing, because you're forcing yourself to consume it at this particular point in time, you might not necessarily be in the mood for it at that particular point in time. So even though you really like the thing, you might not enjoy it at that particular moment because you're just forcing yourself to watch it. That has never, ever happened with me with Die Hard. Every Christmas Day, without question, I watch Die Hard. And whether I'm in the mood for it or not, I'm always in the mood for it once the film's playing because I fucking love that movie. I've enjoyed it every single time. And I'm looking forward to watching it again this year and every year afterwards until the day I die. And if I die on Christmas Day, it may very well be the last movie I ever watch. Now with the remainder of the beer left, which is still a fair bit to be fair, we're going to go through the final segment of this video, which is going to be talking about something completely different but still Christmas themed. We are going to go on to The Simpsons. That was a very hard segue, but I couldn't think of any way to sort of gently merge The Simpsons into this, so fuck it, we're talking about Simpsons now. And what I'm going to do is I am going to rank the top 5 Christmas episodes of The Simpsons and give a little bit of my thoughts on each one. One thing I actually wanted to do last year and never got around to doing it because of time constraints. I had other things I was doing at the time and I started getting to work on this, so I really wanted to do it, but in the end I never managed to do it on time. And that was, I planned on last year at around Christmas time to release a video of me ranking all of the Simpsons Christmas specials, Christmas episodes, in order from worst to best, and giving a little sort of review of each one. And I never ended up doing that, but like I said, I did put a lot of work in. So instead of trying to go through and think about this again, I'm just going to take some of my old notes and use those. So I've looked through the old list I came up with of my actual ranking, and I'm not going to do the whole ranking in this video, but I will give you the top 5. And I've looked through I've looked at what I've got as my top 5, and I still agree with it. So yeah, I'm going to go for that. And I may sort of, glance at the laptop from time to time because I'm looking at notes, but put up with it. Anyway, in 5th place, I have the season 23 episode, Holidays of Future Past. This is the 9th episode of that season. I'm wondering, do I try and skim through this and sort of give you the Cliff Notes version of it? Or do I just read the review I made last year? Fuck, I'm going to read the review. I might as well put it to good use. Because I doubt I'm going to get around to actually doing this video now, and I don't want all this to have been for now. So, fuck it, this is my official review of Holidays of Future Past. One hand on the laptop, one hand on my beer. Let's go. The episodes of The Simpsons where we get to take a look into the future of the characters we know and love are always a treat, because we get to view them in a way that just isn't possible in a normal episode. Big changes can be made to them without any worry about affecting the status quo by the end of the episode, as the next episode will undoubtedly return us to the present day, with future events not yet being of any consequence. This allows the makers to be really creative in a way that they can't normally get away with in the usual sitcom format of the show, which really makes these episodes stand out. Holidays of Future Past is no exception to this rule, and the combination of episodes set in the future along with it being set during the Christmas period merges together really well, as Christmas episodes are generally about family and togetherness, and we've seen that so often with present Simpsons. Watching how the Simpsons of the future, with their aged and adapted personalities and mentalities, consider and react with each other while also having to deal with issues they simply can't have the chance to deal with in the present day is an interesting viewing experience. At this point in the future, Bart is a deadbeat dad, living in Springfield Elementary School who doesn't have custody of his kids, but is having to look after them over Christmas, while Lisa, who is married Milhouse, is struggling to bond with her own daughter due to the generation gap. Homer and Marge, being much older in this episode, take a backseat and act more as supporting characters, but in a genuinely supporting way. Not just to the plot, but also supporting their own children in a heartwarming way, not all too different to the Marge we already know, but for Homer it's apparent that he grows to learn from the mistakes that present-day Homer is currently making to become a better person, and it's genuinely touching to see him care for his grandchildren. Marge puts it best in this episode when she says, "People learn from their mistakes, and your father made so many mistakes." It's also a nice moment when we see Bart and Lisa in Bart's old treehouse, drinking together and talking about their parenting issues. When Bart comforts his sister by telling her he always wanted to be like her, it's a touching moment. This episode also continues the trope of not letting us hear Maggie's voice, which is always fun to see how they will prevent her getting a word in, which is even more hilarious considering her adult profession as a singer. Overall, this is just a really refreshing episode with some wonderful heartfelt moments, and although it doesn't focus a whole lot on the fact that it's Christmas, it still provides a message of family bonding that fits in well with the Christmas setting. Also, we have to consider that this episode very nearly ended up being the entire series finale, as the show was very close to being cancelled. So it's only natural that the writers would want to focus more on where the characters are in their lives in order to give some sense of closure to them, rather than the Christmassiness of the episode. Luckily the show wasn't cancelled, but if this did end up being the series finale, it would have been a beautiful way to end the show. So yeah, as you can see from that little review that I wrote last year, I'm quite into that episode. I think it's a very good episode. One of the things I will say about when I made this list is I was going on how good they are as Christmas episodes. The remaining 4 on the list I think are better Christmas episodes, but if I was just to do a ranking of the top episodes, that might be even higher than some of the others on this list. But you know, the fact that some of the others are more Christmas themed made them fit higher on a Christmas ranking for me. But yeah, Holidays of Future Past is a really, really good episode. It's, you know, it's fine as a Christmas episode. I put it quite high on my Christmas list because it does have that theme of family and togetherness to it. But just as an episode, it's fucking stunning. It's one of the better ones that they've done in later Simpsons, and quite possibly my favourite episode of The Simpsons that's set in the future. It's probably my favourite. It's a really good one. If you haven't seen Holidays of Future Past, I recommend it. In number 4, we have the season 13 episode, She of Little Faith, which is the 6th episode of that season. Plenty of Christmas specials concentrate on how Christmas is about family and togetherness, and while this episode definitely does stick to that, it also has a big focus on the religious aspect as well. And I don't mean about the story of the birth of Jesus Christ, I mean it focuses more on how the Christmas holiday is a religious occasion celebrated by Christianity, and what this time of year means to somebody outside of that group. This is represented by Lisa Simpson renouncing her Christian faith after the church becomes too commercial, being run like a business instead of a place of worship. Just to remove myself from this review a little bit, I do want to add on the sidelines. This episode, focuses on how the religion becomes too commercially based. I think that's a very good analogy to Christmas itself in the real world. It is mainly a religious occasion. It's based on a religious story, but that is not the focus of it now. Nowadays it's become far too commercial for what it's supposed to be, and so I think this episode does a good job of sort of reflecting that through not just taking the holiday itself and making it commercial, but extending that to the religion itself. So yeah. Going on, Lisa researches other religions, trying to find one that aligns better with her own sense of faith and spirituality, eventually discovering a Buddhist temple in Springfield, and discovering that Lenny and Carl are Buddhists. Richard Gere is also there. After announcing that she's now a Buddhist to her family, Lisa's parents team up with other members of the church on a mission to try and pressure Lisa back into the clutches of Christianity, believing that their faith is the only way to save her soul. As not being a Christian prevents her from celebrating Christmas, they try to use it as a tool to win her back over, turning the activities they do around her into a presentation of how wonderful Christmas is. Although Marge is doing this from a place of love, you can't help but see the actions of the Christian community in this episode as a parody of the Christian community in real life, and their need to convert as many people as possible to their belief system. Realising what her family are doing makes Lisa run away, visiting the Buddhist temple, where Richard Gere explains to her that Buddhism teaches respect of other faiths, and allows its followers to celebrate other religious holidays as long as they are based on love and compassion. This means Lisa can still celebrate Christmas with her family despite being a Buddhist, so she returns home where her family are pleased to have her back and accept her new religion. This ending really comes back to that feeling of family and togetherness which is present in most Christmas specials, but also throws in the message that although it's a Christian holiday, Christmas has become so much more than that, with people from most other religions, as well as atheists and agnostics, still celebrating it in some way. Because nowadays, it isn't really about Jesus anymore, it's about spending time with the people you love and making each other happy. I think that's a beautiful message which this episode gets across very well, and that's why I rate it so highly on this list. The only reason this episode didn't make it to my top 3 is because of the episodes that did make it to my top 3. So yeah, I don't really think I need to sum that up. I think the conclusion to that review really spelled it out quite well. The story itself is a great analogy for what Christmas is in the modern day, and even though it's not necessarily about what it used to be about, it's still got value to it, and that episode helps to sort of spread the message of its modern values of love and compassion and family. And I think it's a wonderful episode that sort of demonstrates the true meaning of Christmas as it is in the modern day, which to me personally is the true meaning of Christmas as it should be, because the whole story of the birth of Jesus, I'm sure this is no surprise to anyone else, I am an atheist, so I don't believe in that. So when I partake in Christmas activities, it is more so following the message of love and compassion that comes with Christmas. And so to have an episode like this that demonstrates that, I think is a wonderful message to show people, no matter what you believe in, Christmas is still a valuable time of year with a really good message to tell for anyone, not just for Christians. In third place, The Way of the Dog. That might surprise some people. It's debated whether or not this counts as a Christmas episode, as any season with a Christmas special in it tends to be limited to just the one, whereas this is the second in the season, and also by this point it's become tradition to start all the Christmas specials with the Christmassy version of the opening sequence, whereas this episode doesn't. However, I do agree that this is a Christmas episode, whether presented as one or not by the creators. It's set around Christmas time, links in with the first ever episode of The Simpsons, which was also a Christmas special, and the use of the Santa hat as a plot device is so pivotal that it could be argued that the acknowledgement of Christmas is essential to the plot. So I would definitely argue that this is indeed a Christmas episode. I hadn't seen it before doing this review, so I went into it with no idea what to expect from it, and I have to say I was completely blown away by it. It's not the most Christmassy of episodes, so I couldn't give it the top spot on this list, but the story alone was so beautiful, I couldn't put it any lower than the top 3. Honestly, outside of Christmas, I think this has become one of my favourite all-time episodes of The Simpsons, which is unusual, because The Simpsons is first and foremost a comedy, and this episode, although it does have its moments, isn't really a start-to-end laugh fest. However, it's one of the most perfect examples of the series taking the time to focus a little less on the comedy, and more on telling a tight, emotionally driven narrative, and it excels at that in such a way that even I can unashamedly admit that I began to tear up a little at the end. And I'm not usually the kind to be outwardly emotional at all. In a series that's focused on comedy, it's refreshing to have these occasional episodes that tell a more serious story. And this one really got to me in a way it's rare for The Simpsons to achieve. You'll notice I haven't given much of the plot away for this one, and that's intentional, because I want to give people the chance to watch it without ruining it too much for them. Not that it's full of surprises or anything, it's actually quite a straightforward story. I just think it's so well written that it deserves the full enjoyment of those who watch it. I will say that it focuses on the family dog, Santa's little helper, who starts acting weird around a Santa hat that Marge tries to make him wear. After this moment, he continues to act strange, worrying the family so much that they seek the aid of Elaine Wolf, a dog psychiatrist voiced by Cate Blanchett, who delivers as quality of a performance as you would expect an actress of her calibre to give. The episode delves a little into the past of Santa's little helper before he became a member of the Simpsons family. As a dog lover myself, I was particularly immersed in this episode, revelling in seeing an episode treat Santa's little helper with such incredible seriousness, and I applaud the makers of the show for gifting us this. Originally, this episode was not meant to be the finale to season 31, but the pandemic prevented them from making any more episodes, so those episodes instead carried over to season 32. However, I can't imagine a better episode to close a season on. I highly recommend this episode to anybody who hasn't seen it yet. Also, I think I forgot to mention at the start of that review, The Way of the Dog is from season 31. It's the finale of season 31. It is episode 22 of that season. So that one could be a bit of a controversial one from the point of view that it's in the top 3 of a Christmas list, and it's, debatable whether or not it's even a Christmas episode. I think I've made a good argument there as to why it should be considered a Christmas episode. But yeah, even though the story itself doesn't necessarily focus that much on Christmas, I think it is such a wonderful story that it can't be any lower on that list. I really do like. This was written a year ago. I still have that same feeling now. If you haven't seen the episode, watch it. Especially if you're a dog lover, it'll really, really touch you emotionally. In second place, and honestly, this was difficult not to put in first place, but in second place, I've gone with the first episode of the first season, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. If you don't count the Tracy Ullman shorts, this is the first ever episode of The Simpsons. Certainly the first since it became its own independent series, but not by choice. The original first episode was supposed to be Some Enchanted Evening, but that episode was pushed to later in the season as the initial animation footage they received for that episode was terrible. So, they instead opened the series with this Christmas special. I don't know personally, but I assume there would have been a few rewrites to the script to accommodate the change, as this would be many viewers' introduction to these characters. This episode does a remarkably good job of laying the groundwork for the personality of each member of the Simpsons household. Homer's goofiness, his frail temper, and hatred of Marge's sisters Patty and Selma, but also his devotion to his family and willingness to do whatever it takes to not disappoint them. Bart's mischievous attitude, demonstrated through his choice of gift on his letter to Santa, as well as his antics at the Springfield shopping mall. Lisa's childish purity and innocence, yet extremely above average intelligence for a girl her age. And Marge being the manager of the household, in control of the Christmas shopping and how the family savings are handled, until that all goes wrong. All this is achieved well enough for us to get a good handle on who these people are, while also not concentrating too much on introductions, instead mainly demonstrating the characters' personalities through their plot-related dialogue and actions. This allows the episode to stay focused on its narrative, which is very much centred around Christmas. Also in this episode, not only are we introduced to the family dog, Santa's little helper, but the family are introduced to him too. The way the family acquire the dog through the course of the plot, instead of him just being there from the start and needing to take time away from the important stuff just to establish him, is a great example of how perfectly balanced this episode is between the establishment of its characters and its focus on its Christmas plot and message. The best way I could sum up this episode is perfectly balanced, and it's impossible to watch it without feeling that Christmas spirit. See, I think out of all the Christmas episodes of The Simpsons, that first episode is probably the one I've watched the most. And yeah, a lot of that may come from the fact that sometimes I want to binge watch Simpsons, particularly like the golden age of The Simpsons, and so I start from season 1 and go until I'm bored of doing it. And so I watch the first episode loads of times because that's where you start. But I do genuinely love that first episode, and I think it's one of the episodes where if I feel around Christmas time that I want to watch a Christmas episode of The Simpsons, this is one of my go-tos. I do genuinely think it's a brilliant Christmas episode and a wonderful opening episode. I don't know how different it would have been if Some Enchanted Evening did end up being the first episode of The Simpsons. I think it worked out for the best that Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire ended up being the first, because it introduces everyone perfectly without, like I said in the review, it introduces them all perfectly without taking too much focus away from the plot. Our introduction to their characters and personalities are very much woven into the plot, and it is perfectly balanced. Like I also said at the end of the review there, it's impossible to watch it without feeling that Christmas spirit. Christmas is very much an integral part of the plot, and you do get the feeling of Christmassy goodness just from watching it. So yeah, rated very highly. It was actually very, very difficult not to have that episode in first place. I think we've got enough beer left for a dishonourable mention before going to the top spot. So on my ranking list last year, this is the episode that was at the bottom. Of all the Christmas specials, I think this is the worst Christmas special. And I don't even necessarily think this is a bad episode of The Simpsons. It's fine. As far as The Simpsons go, it's an okay episode. As far as ranking it on a list of Christmas episodes, this is definitely at the bottom, and I'll get into why now. This is from season 20. It is episode 8 of season 20, and it is The Burns and the Bees. The opening title sequence to this episode has more to do with Christmas than the actual episode itself. There is nothing, literally nothing in this episode that has anything to do with Christmas. Lisa discovers that the bees are dying due to bee measles, or beezles, and so she keeps a colony of bees on her face as a beard of bees, until she eventually relocates them to an old greenhouse so they can thrive. Meanwhile, Mr. Burns wins a basketball team in a game of poker, but loses popularity with the crowds when he shoots a mascot, believing it to be a real gorilla. Mr. Burns getting away with this can be seen as part of the message of how everything is just sport for the exceedingly rich, but it is absolutely insane that something as horrific as the murder of another human in front of a room full of witnesses has no negative repercussions for Mr. Burns. The Simpsons isn't one to shy away from violence as seen in the various Itchy and Scratchy cartoons or in the Treehouse of Horror episodes, but to witness the canon murder of a person in the real world of these characters treated as a gag is kind of jarring to watch, to be honest. I'm all for this kind of dark humour, don't get me wrong, but it's not what I expect from a show like The Simpsons. Anyway, in order to win back his popularity, Mr. Burns decides to build a new stadium, destroying the greenhouse Lisa was keeping the bees in so that he can build on that land. I have to admit, the moment where Lisa is tending to the bees just to have a wrecking ball crash through unexpectedly did get a huge laugh from me. So Burns builds his stadium and the bees are going to die out. But Homer and Moe breed a new colony of super bees by combining Lisa's bees with some African bees. However, these bees are quite vicious, and they invade the new stadium because it's built in such a way that it looks like a hive. The bees drive all the people out of the stadium and take it on as their new home. This episode isn't a particularly bad episode, and it did have its funny moments, but it's also not particularly great. I probably wouldn't put it this low on the list if I was just ranking these based on quality alone, but this is a list of the best Christmas episodes, and in my mind, I don't even consider this to be a Christmas episode at all. If not for the Christmas-themed opening sequence, nothing about this episode even subtly whispers the notion of Christmas. Not the worst episode, but by far the worst Christmas special, because it just isn't one. Yeah, that's my biggest gripe with this, is that it has the Christmas-themed opening, obviously setting it up to be a Christmas special, and then you never hear anything about Christmas in the episode ever again. It is weird that they decided to air it as if it was a Christmas special. I don't know why. Not every season of The Simpsons has a Christmas special. You can get away with not doing a Christmas special. So why did they decide to give it the Christmassy opening sequence if it's not going to have anything to do with Christmas? Just let that be one of the seasons where you don't have a Christmas special. You have quite a few of them. This season could have been the same, but for some reason you aired this as if it was a Christmas special, and it quite clearly isn't, and that's why it has to be. No matter how the quality of the episode is, it has to be at the bottom of a Christmas ranking, because it is completely void of Christmas. And finally, we get to the top spot. First place, the best Christmas episode of The Simpsons, the one that's just managed to beat Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. Let's find out what that is. Season 7, Episode 11, Marge Be Not Proud. After The Simpsons began its first season with the Christmas special, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, we wouldn't receive a Christmas episode again until 6 seasons later. And I'm not entirely sure why, as this episode proved that the writers were very good at it. The plot focuses around Marge and Bart's relationship, which is something you don't see very often. Usually we focus on Homer's relationship with his kids, so it's refreshing to see the other parent get an episode to shine. In the episode, Bart wants a new video game called Bone Storm, which is clearly a parody of the Mortal Kombat series. But his parents won't buy it for him because it's both expensive and violent. While at the try and save, Bart meets the school bullies who are stealing items from the store, and this convinces him to steal the game. But his attempt fails as he's caught by the store security officer Don Brodka, voiced by Lawrence Tierney, who does a wonderful job making him a memorable character. Bart is banned from the try and save, but Marge, who doesn't know that Bart was caught shoplifting, insists on taking the family there to get their family photo taken. Don Brodka is there and reveals to Marge that her son is a thief. Marge thinks she might be over-mothering Bart, so the rest of the episode is spent with her trying to give him some space and letting him do things for himself. but he takes this as a rejection from a mother who doesn't want him around anymore. The episode is a fantastic example of The Simpsons still being able to get some funny jokes in, but showing that they can tackle more serious storylines that bring out other emotions. As a viewer, you're conflicted because you know Bart did wrong, and Marge, who doesn't even really punish him for it, is doing her best to try and alter her own parenting techniques in order to raise her son better. But it's also heartbreaking to see Bart, who is still just a child, go through this feeling of abandonment, to the point where he even asks Milhouse's mom, Luann Van Houten, if he can hang around with her while she does mother stuff, just so he can still have the experience of a mother figure in his life. It all culminates in Bart earning back his mother's mothering in an emotional scene where he returns home hiding something in his coat, and Marge believes he's stolen again, just to find out it was a present he was hiding for her. It's a bit overly sentimental, but this episode has earned it. And the closing joke where Bart thinks he's getting the game he wanted for Christmas, just to find out he has Lee Carvalho's putting challenge, is perfect considering that the episode did set up the punchline earlier. A wonderfully emotional plot with some great jokes too, as well as a fantastic guest appearance, makes this a great Christmas episode and a truly great episode, period. So yeah, again, I think the reviews sum that one up really well. I always find it difficult to rank first and second place between that one and Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. But when I watched through all the Christmas episodes last year to do my ranking, I realised that when watching Marge Be Not Proud in close conjunction with Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, that although they are close, Marge Be Not Proud does edge it out a little bit. It is a little bit of a better Christmas episode because it's really good. I don't know how else to explain it. All the details I've given in the review itself, so there's not really much I can add onto that. I just think it's, like I said at the end, it's a wonderful Christmas episode, and it's also just a wonderful episode. The whole narrative, the storytelling between Bart and his relationship with his mother is something that's not focused on too much because it's always focused on Homer rather than Marge. And so to have this story being told, which isn't as common, it's a good angle that we don't always get to see, and it's told beautifully. And there's clearly one person in the wrong and one person in the right, but you're still sort of on the side of both people because of how each of their stories are being told. There's a lot of complexity to it, a lot of emotion to it, and, for a comedy sitcom, it's stellar. It's absolutely stellar. And so that is, to me, the best Christmas episode of The Simpsons of all time. And now that's out of the way, I can close the laptop and bring this video to a conclusion. This has been a jam-packed episode today. Talking about Christmas, talking about my feelings on Christmas, talking about Die Hard, best Christmas movie of all time, and it is a Christmas movie. And also my top 5 Christmas episodes of The Simpsons, and also the least Christmassy episode of The Simpsons because there is no Christmas in it at all. So yeah, considering how long it's been since I've done one of these videos, hopefully this this episode's so jam-packed full that it'll make up for that. I do apologise for how long it's taken me to do one of these. Again, other commitments as well as just not having ideas of things to talk about have really slowed down the sort of production of these now. Honestly, I know I say this quite often, but if you do have any ideas for things that you want me to discuss in these videos, please let me know. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you want me to talk about, and if I have anything to say, then I will really consider doing a video on it, because I am running very short on ideas, and that is one of the main reasons that that this series hasn't been producing many episodes as of late, because I'm trying to think of more things to talk about. Hopefully you enjoyed what I talked about today. This beer is now over. We can cross it off this poster. I'd be a pirate. So yeah, with that crossed off, that is the Beer Chronicles Christmas Bonanza brought to a close. If you like this video, please press like down below to let me know that you liked it. That way I know that you liked it. And if you didn't like this video, feel free to press dislike. I will not be offended. As I said before, leave a comment down below to let me know what sort of topics you want me to talk about on these videos, and I will discuss them if I have anything to say. But also leave a comment down below just to give me your general thoughts on Christmas, what you think of this time of the year. It'd be interesting to hear the different opinions of people, whether or not you like Christmas, whether you don't like Christmas, whether you focus more on the presents and the commercial aspect, or whether you are more religious about it. Maybe you do think about Jesus this time of the year. Or maybe for you, just like me, it has now become more about family than about Jesus. Let me know what you think down below. But keep it civil down there. If other people have different opinions to yourself, that is absolutely fine. They're allowed to have different opinions to you, and you are allowed to have different opinions to them. It's all good. As these videos don't have any kind of schedule, the best way to know when a new video is up is to subscribe to the channel. So please subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and you will be notified when they go up. And then to actually be notified when they go up, ring the bell as well. That is the Christmas themed Beer Chronicles video officially over, and that means I no longer have to wear this stupid fucking hat.